What's up, y'all? This is MVP with Juxtaposed, and today we're going to talk about fitting in, code switching, and all those type of things people do to manipulate the crowd and manipulate their environment. And we don't know if it's a good thing, a bad thing. Should you do it? Should you not do it? Are you a person who do it? We're going to talk about it today. Stay tuned.
We are back again for another episode of Juxtaposed. Today we're talking about the social pressures of fitting in, right?
Okay. I like that.
So I have my co-host here, MVP.
Whoop, whoop.
We have our program manager in the background, Kels. He's the first time here on Juxtaposed, but he's not going to be on cameras. He's going to be behind the scenes.
Mysterious voice.
It's gonna pop up. It gives some, some dynamic. It's normally just the two of us talking, so we love it. So the question is where we start is, and this is a very rudimentary question: have you ever tried to fit it in any social circle before?
So I would say most definitely. I have most definitely put the effort into trying to fit in. Now I will add something at the beginning of that. It was more of like when I was growing up. But now I'm more of a, hey, I'm just going to be who I am. You have to fit in with me. Not to be cocky or arrogant or nothing like that. It's just like to have that mentality, I think is better than trying to like mold yourself to what other people might think you should be, right? But just to, bring it back to like MVP at age, I would say high school. Because I'm not gonna give people my age. I'm not gonna age myself on here.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, so in high school, obviously you have cliques, right? You have groups of people. You got the cool kids, you got the nerds, you got the emo people, you got the mean girls and stuff like that. And so there's definitely a period of time growing up in school environment where I've tried to do what I needed to do to fit in. And especially because my situation is like, I was born in DC and then I moved to Virginia and then I moved back to DC. Mm-hmm. And so the culture in the Virginia schools that I went to is completely different than the culture in the DC schools. Mm-hmm. And so I had dragon shirts, right? Like I used to wear shirts with dragons on because I'm into anime.
Okay.
So in Virginia, that was cool. You know what I mean? But when I went to DC, when I say they flamed me, and I thought I was like first day at school, I got the most freshest dragon shirt. Like the dragon looked fierce, Sasha fierce. And I'm like, yo, I'm about to kill it. They said, boy, if you don't get your big shirt, little pants.
Damn.
Afro smushed head out of here. And I'm like, dang. Next day, black tee, white tees to fit in.
Interesting.
You see what I'm saying? And I'm gonna stop right there because I feel like I'm taking a lot of that. This is a conversation. So let's start off in like your younger days. Have you tried to fit in or?
Yeah. So I think that at the core, that is like a part of the human existence, right? Like you naturally want to be a part of the crew, so like a part of the clique. And I think that is something that I definitely dealt with when I was younger, and it is definitely something that it influenced a lot of the decisions when you were trying to find out who you were as a person. So yeah, there was a lot. I don't have a direct situation like yours with the dragon shirt.
Hey, okay, so when I mention that, we're never going to mention it again.
Oh, no, it's going to come up again. It'll be like,
that was just a vulnerable moment.
Listen,
but now we got to move past that.
Listen, I think at the core of this, what you need to be reminded every now and again to be humble. And, as our friends, you want to have your friend do that for you. So It might be in the middle of a podcast, and I will be like, you don't have a dragon shirt for today? Like, I'm going to bring it up.
So basically, y'all, I set myself up.
Yep.
It's fine.
Do you remember the purple shirt?
That was funny. Yes, I did. I did have a purple shirt on.
I'll see if we can find the clip. Maybe we throw it in here. But in our first go at Juxtaposed, we literally had a day where he came in here looking like a grape Kool-Aid man. It was hilarious, and the whole time we flamed him during the episode in the most unique ways. So, and it was done out of love. It was not. It was a
in
good
a
time.
situation like that, what I should have did was go get another shirt so
No.
I can fit in.
No.
No?
See,
Okay.
the thing is, I think that what comes with age is you realize is like, I'm gonna be me, right?
Mhm.
And there's certain people that I'm gonna gel with, and those people are my people. And if I don't gel with anybody, that's fine because you're not my people.
Mm.
And I think once you put that in perspective, it makes life very easy. And then we're talking about in the idea of like friendships and stuff like that. I think we're gonna talk about work because work is a whole nother thing.
Yeah, that's
like
a whole
we'll get to that later. But I think from our friends, the people I have as friends right now. I am very happy with the people because they accept me for me, right? And that could be that sometimes I'm, take things in one different direction. I don't need to. Sometimes I may have a sensitive response to something, and it's like, okay, dude, really?
Well, I have a question for you
Okay,
because I want to stay here in the past days for a second.
okay.
So you were born in.
Trinidad and Tobago, actually Tobago.
So I feel like this is a great question for you. So when you came back over here, when you came over here, there wasn't a period of time where you're like, okay, the culture in Tobago is obviously going to be different. So you didn't have a period of time where.
It's weird because not to go through my whole history, but I moved from Tobago to St. Kitts, lived in St. Kitts for a while with like an American family. And then with that same family, we moved back to America. So I feel like the transition wasn't as hard then.
Okay.
I feel like the harder transition I had is like I left Maryland and went to New York for high school. And that was a different ball game. Like that was a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
But I think New York was a good place for that coming from the Caribbean because there's so many people. Like all my friends were, Jamaican, other Americans. It was just like it was such a mix of people that it was very accepting of different people. But yeah, I don't like I remembered it as a kid trying, like doing things to be cool with people, but like I don't, I can't think of a lot of instances where that was a thing. I mean, I do think when I came here, I used to get told by the young ladies, as MVP says, it's like, "Oh, you talk white," and I'm like, I don't know what that means. What does that mean? I don't know.
That was another thing I faced when I was coming from Virginia to DC, and obviously it's not that you talk white, it's just that you enunciate words and like speak like, you have I don't know.
I have a good use of the English language.
Like you have an education? I don't know.
It's wild. It's just a wild thing. So yeah, I do think at the core we spend our times trying to not be the odd guy out. And then you get to a point in life, most people, where you're like, I don't mind being the odd guy out. I don't mind being the bad guy.
That is a beautiful place to be at.
It is
when you get to that point.
There's a freedom you have that is unmatched. When you get to the point where you're like, you know what?
It is what it is.
You can go somewhere with your opinions.
Right.
Like, like one of my boys used to say this all the time. My boy Promise was like, people's opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. And when you say it like that, like I had never heard anybody say it before he said that to me. So it is a common statement. And the addition that I've heard also is like everybody's opinions are like assholes, and everybody has one, and generally they're full of shit.
Okay.
And when you add that on top of it, then you're like, well, I don't really care what you have to say.
Right.
I don't give a shit.
So let's go into do you want to go into the work part, or do you want to go into if you feel like it's even something that's necessary?
Well,
to even attempt.
I guess I'm gonna call out this guy here because I feel like he has had a very interesting time fitting in where he just like everybody's like this kid since he was born, so it makes life very easy for him.
Oh, so you're a likable individual.
Apparently,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, to keep it short and to the point. In high school, I was very introverted, like extremely introverted, and I just people just came towards me. Like they were always like, there was like a weird aura. Like not to be like weird in the energy or spiritual, like it was just always an aura where I just always like attracted people. And like, not, it was just strange to me. And I didn't really want to be around people.
You
Like
couldn't escape it.
I couldn't escape it. Now I've come to terms with it. I'm a much more like I'm a completely different person to who I was in high school. And now I guess the best way to say is like I enjoy the company. I can't say like I enjoy it now. I can't say I go looking for it, but I definitely never really attempted to fit in. Just the way it is.
It just happened like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why the reason I wanted to call it out, because I remember like he would just be like, I don't want to talk to anybody, and there'll be like swarms of people all the time, and I'm like, well, I guess once you have that, that's a good skill.
Well, isn't that like reverse psychology in a sense? Like when you don't want something, you get it, but when you really, really want something, you don't get it. So maybe there was like seeing Kels and like, I want you to be my friend. He's like, I don't really want friends. He's like, please, like the fact that you don't want to be friends, now I want to be your friend. Maybe there was some type of like, we go back to aura and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a pull.
It's very possible.
Very possible. Yeah.
So jumping into the work thing, and I think the work one is a little bit of a challenge, because I feel like at work you definitely want to put your best foot forward at all times. So you would find yourself, that's where I feel like the code switching thing comes up, which we don't have the definition here. Oh, what is? Yeah, we do. Code switching is shifting or manipulating one's behaviors to appeal to different crowds or audience.
Perfect.
Thank you for putting that there, because I literally was about to say, I don't think we have this written down anywhere. But no, it's something that I feel like we do in general. And I think of like work, like there was a group of, the job that we had, there was a point where there was a group of the Black people.
Yeah, just keep it real.
And when those people were together, it was the most comfortable time at work.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess there were other white people that hung out with us there too, but like, it was like that. It was very easy to just be yourself in that situation, versus like dealing with other people where you're like worried about making an impression that was negative.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, the question is like, can you exist in a space in work and be your true self?
And so I would like to take up that challenge of answering that. So for me, and this goes back, this is one of the reasons why I gave y'all the school, because I've had to code switch all my life. So even with my parents growing up, like my stepdad was like, yo, you need to say yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. No cussing. So already, like even now, like I don't cuss around my parents a lot. And so when they see me interact with my friends, they're like, MVP. Oh, OMG. I'm like, yeah, I'm a real guy. Like I can get down. And so
wait, do they watch the podcast?
Yeah.
We
one time my dad was like, oh, y'all be talking about nasty stuff on there. I was like, and this is like when we was doing the old one, right? The old versions. I'm like, well, I mean, that is a part of like society. Like you got to be able to talk about anything, right?
Yeah.
And so even when I cuss now, I be like, I brace my parents for it, because usually when I cuss, it's to really portray a feeling, really give them a feeling of whatever I'm trying to get them to understand. And so to bring it back to work, I'm like, if I'm gonna do that in my own family, when I get around people who are of different races, I might not talk the same.
Is it just about race though?
Well, I think it's also environment. So for example, I like that because for example, in Virginia, there were Black people in Virginia at the schools, but they talked a certain type of way. They moved a certain type of way. They were into like video games and anime and stuff like that. But when I went to DC, sports, football, basketball, like, and it really wasn't anime talk. Everybody liked like hip hop and stuff like that. But even the way you talk around there, because like they were like, yo, Nick, you talk white. And for a period of time, I did code switch my language. I did start using more slang words. I was like, what does mo mean?
Yeah.
Right? Like what is champ? I was like, champ, I'm not a champion of anything. I would like to be. And they're like, no, MVP, it means this. I'm like, so there was a level of like code switching where I had to learn how to maneuver, because if they thought you was a square, they would probably put hands and feet on you. I've seen it.
Yeah.
So it's like you also do it to survive. So when you talk about work, I think part of it is you don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable, right? I don't know why they would feel uncomfortable, but you don't want to like for example, for me, I don't say the N-word around white people. So
okay.
So, but when I'm around my guys, I might throw it out there. You know what I'm saying? So even on this podcast, I'm like, so we can monetize. I don't talk as like explicit as I might want to sometimes.
Yeah.
I think that's code switching. But my thing is, you have to be able to maneuver within wherever you need to be to get things done.
Yeah. You know what's funny though? Because we've put shiny words on things that have been done for, ever. And I feel like the ability to speak to somebody in a certain way in order to get what you want out of the situation is a requirement for life and surviving. So it's really like, to your point, it's like, it's not that I see somebody and I'm like, yo, my bro, in order
What's up, dog?
Yeah,
I'm like, bro, I don't talk like that.
That kills me at work.
Bring that up. I remember you brought that up before.
Because I like, sometimes people will be like, yo, and I'm like, top of the morning to you. How's it going? You go ahead and quit that malarkey. Like, it's just like, you just want to, like, I'm a person. Like, I don't have to fit into something just because you think I am. Like, yes, I'm into hip hop. Yes, I'm all these things. It doesn't mean that when I see you first thing in the morning, I'm going to be like, yo, what's up, my guy?
Yeah, trying to get dap or something like that.
I don't even do that with my friends. I'm like, sometimes like, hey, what's going on, man? It's
very, very simple.
Yeah, so I think that we need to be very cautious of the fact that, like, we're labeling things that have been happening. It's like my feeling around gaslighting.
Okay.
I feel like the word gaslighting has been used so much now that I think that it's just misused and it's like, oh, okay, you're toxic, or I'm like, stop. Are you actually being gaslit here? No.
Well, my thing is, I didn't even know that was a thing.
I didn't either.
Because like when you realize that it's a thing and you find out what it is, and then you realize that you have been gaslit, it kind of affects the psyche a little bit. You're like, hold up. So I called you was playing with me. You were trying to play, like you're trying to play games with me. So it is interesting. But to go back to the work stuff, I'm like, yo, nowadays I'm like, I do things to maneuver correctly, but I also want to stay true to myself. So I'm like, if I feel like I'm being pressured to be different, in the past, I probably would have let it slide. But now I'm like you say, like, yo, I don't care, bro. Everybody has an opinion.
Yeah.
But as long as I can sleep at night, which is, yo, we should play a game of how many times I say,
as long as I can sleep at night.
As long as I can sleep at night, because y'all might get, like, I don't know, if we want to be a drinking game, you might get really drunk. So I'm like, for me to sleep at night nowadays, it's like, yo, I have to know that I went into this situation, whether it's at work, especially when you're around higher ups. Mm-hmm. That was one thing I was really concerned with as my career was taking off, right? Mm-hmm. I was like, yo, look at me. Look how I dress, right? I got the scully on the head, you know what I'm saying? I wear chains and stuff like that. But that's just me. I should be able to dress how I want to dress. But then when I open my mouth, I should be able to speak respectful. I should be able to like understand like whatever is necessary in the job. Mm-hmm. And once I got to that point where I'm like confident in what the hell I'm talking about and how I'm moving and how I'm working, I don't really care how you feel anymore. Mm-hmm. So,
well, I think there's a little bit of a struggle there, because I think there is if your goal is to move forward and move up in any corporate America setting, you have to essentially be able to play the game. And the game is being able to be malleable to whatever situation comes your way. And some people feel a certain way about that. It's like, oh, you're being fake. It's like, no, it's like, if you get, not to use a stereotypical example, but if you get pulled over by the cops, you go a little softer with your approach.
Man.
And if just based on our experience and what you've seen, when I see the cops like, hey, how's it? Top of the morning to you, officer. How are you doing? Oh, you were speeding. Oh, you don't say. I had no idea. My speedometer must be broken.
Bro, clean it up.
They know you're being stupid, right? Like, like my biggest goal is if I can generally get the officer to laugh, it limits my ability to get it. It limits the possibility of me getting a ticket. Like I remember one time I was in Tennessee and officer pulled me over. It was honestly, I really didn't realize I was speeding because the speed limit dropped like in a town real quick. Like,
yeah, I know how to go. Yeah.
He pulled me over and he was like, "Oh, did you realize you were speeding?" I'm like, "Oh, what's going on?" And I was really confused. He's like, "Oh, license and registration." I'm like, "Yeah, it's a rental, so I'm gonna have to grab the stuff from the glove box." He's like, "All right, cool." I show him his license. Like, "Oh, I've never seen this one. Where's this from?" I was like, "In Maryland." He's like, "Oh yeah, this looks different." I'm like, "Yeah, it looks like shit, doesn't it?" He started laughing. I was like, "Gotcha,
got him."
I didn't get no ticket. I got a warning. Because generally, you think about it, in that situation, they want to go home. They don't want to have no problems. If they don't, like this is a person. If your interaction with the person is hostile, you get what you reap what you sow. So there is a space where code switching and changing your personality to fit the situation is expected. The question really goes too far to the point where it's like, if you have no identity of who you are in every circle you go, you become, or you're a part of, then that's a different question.
And that's I like that because you're like molding yourself to fit that. Like you should be able to still be your true self, but just like turn things up or down, right?
Yeah.
Like have a balance. But if you're like completely, this is why some people be like, yo, like it's a joke where it's like, yo, if you get around like some young ladies, you act different. And it's like, bro, like, oh, now you're tough. You're acting like a tough guy around the ladies. It's like, bro, just be yourself and people are going to gravitate to you, regardless.
I don't think people know what that means. Like, what does being yourself mean? I think that, and that's why you see, like, there's times where I've seen people like get into relationships and they like change their whole personality. And I'm like,
yeah, I don't.
But like, at which point in this relationship were you, right? And and it's the same thing with, you might get a job or, you might pull up in a different car and you'll be like, oh, I made it. And you kind of like look down on people and I'm like, bro, all you need is somebody to sideswipe you and you back on the bus, bro. Like,
with just, all the rest of the bus people looking at you like, oh, you're back, huh?
You should literally not. You should be very aware of your circumstances and know that like you might be up now, but that could change very quickly. So remember the same humility that you should have all the time. I mean, it's a weird balance when you go for humility versus like just being confident. But that's a whole different conversation. That's for a different podcast.
Yeah.
The biggest question, the biggest thing here is like knowing like who is the true you. And I think a lot of people don't know that till like later in their life. And honestly, the scary thing is some people don't know that
ever.
And they live their whole life that way. So
they live their whole life trying to fit in. I don't know. I just it is tough to like be able to maneuver like that. But I guess I do think there is a importance of fitting in, but I don't want to use the word fitting in. I want to use the word network, like networking. Do you think that on the spectrum that fitting in could be networking, especially at this age? Maybe when you're younger, you were literally trying to fit in to like groups and stuff like that. But
and networking is a weird thing for me because it's the act of just keeping like those interactions alive so that you can pull levers when you need to. It's different for me. I've always been in a space where I'm like, I know this person. We have either worked together, whether it be at work or some creative thing or aspiration that we're trying to complete. But it's been natural where there are people who would like literally, hey buddy, let's make sure and keep in contact, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, it's very interesting to me, but I do think it's a little bit required as you're as good. Your projects are as successful as your network is. That's
okay.
big.
Elaborate
like-
on that.
So essentially, if you are like, you decide you want to build,
A bear.
I can't help you with that, but you want to
Okay.
you want to build like your career as a musician.
Okay.
If you never interacted with anybody that did music, you would have a very hard time achieving that.
I like where you're going with this because I think this makes the question a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
So let's go with that scenario, right? Music. I've heard that in the industry, you have to do and maneuver certain ways for them to propel you to the top.
I mean, there's a question. There's always going to be a question of like what you're willing to give to do that, right? And sometimes people want it faster than their ability to work for it. So they're like, well, I'll do whatever it takes. I mean, that's what happened with the that guy known as Harvey Weinstein. I mean, people were trying to use, and he was taking full advantage of that, unfortunately. So the game is weird. But you have to network, and honestly, it's always gonna be. Sometimes you have to work with people that are not fun to, like, they're not real people.
And that's the tough part for me, because I'm the type of person where if I see that your character is a certain type of way, I tend to like back off from you. But if it's a situation where like if you continue to bang with this person, you'll get to the next level. When do you like decide to let certain things slide? You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of something like a dilemma I have with myself in my mind.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. And I feel like that's where you have to kind of differentiate the type of interactions you have. Just going back to the networking thing, that might be somebody that you meet and like, okay, they do like using music or even podcasting, right? You go on this person's podcast, you're not the bestest of friends or whatever, but you know that by doing that podcast, you're gonna get more viewers, or so there's a little bit of keeping that network alive. It's like, I don't know if I want to bring this girl's name up, but Bobby Altoff.
Oh, gosh.
And watching her go on to different podcasts, and I'm like, it's working for her.
Yeah.
Even though it's very uncomfortable in those interactions. The Drake one did numbers for her. If she didn't do that,
yeah, it crushed.
I don't know if many people would have known who she was. I mean, like, I feel like we've all three of us saw the Funny Marco one. And that was the first one that we saw. But like, if it isn't, like, clearly she doesn't mess with Drake, right? Like they pulled the whole episode down.
Yeah.
So, but without doing that, while doing that, she became a household name. So
was that code switching? Because she didn't even know like who Lil Wayne is. She don't know who. I'm like, why are you in this realm with these rappers? Because she had an interview with Lil Yachty too.
Yep, and Tyga.
I didn't see that one yet, and I'm like, you don't even know that culture, but you're tapping into that culture.
But that is effectively using your network, because somehow she pulled that episode off, and she said she was paying people $300. I'm like, you didn't pay Drake $300.
Well, no. You know she didn't do that for Drake. But I guess my thing is that wrong?
That is a good question, because I do think there is going to be times when you need to interact with people that you may not want to. Like, you're not gonna be like, hey, you come on over for Thanksgiving dinner with this person, right? Like,
okay.
But you're gonna do what you need to do in order to get this building block, to be able to pull in the lever, which it feels transactional as shit. I'm not gonna lie to you. It always feels very transactional to me. So I don't think it's wrong. I think it's necessary. But if you're losing yourself to do it, then that becomes a problem.
Yeah, I think that'll be the key, because you definitely have to have the balance, because you're going to have to network to move. But I guess my thing is, I kind of do want to call people out on it too, because I'm like, hey, if I'm seeing you move in a way where it looks like you're trying to fit in, I want to be like, as your friend, obviously it wouldn't be somebody I don't care about, but as your friend, I want to be like, hey man, you're moving kind of different. And sometimes I think people do it without actually knowing that they're doing it. And I'm like, I don't want you to lose yourself when you do that.
But I think the question does come in. Like, what are we talking about? Because if it's like, well, I'm hanging out with a bunch of people and these people fit this that's different. Like I remember somebody gave me crap because like I would hang out with a bunch of people that were different than the group we were hanging out with.
Okay.
And it's like, I don't know how you hang out with them. I'm like, that one is a DJ, the other one's a producer. Like our common ground is music. And so that's not going to be the same as like me and the person, because like we're cool because we do different things. And you're going to have different. If you're not aware of the different circles you have in your friends group, then that's the problem. You're going to have friend groups that, I mean, I feel like we talked about this in the last episode.
Yeah.
But like you have friends that you're like, this is my core. Then you have people that are like, this is the group that I call when I want to go to party. This is the group that I call when I do. And honestly, I feel like if you get at the core of all of that, that is all just networking. It's just using your network differently.
I got one.
Okay.
Because I've seen this before. Say you are a newly like married Black man and woman, right? And you move to the most suburban like white neighborhood.
Okay.
Right? And you see, oh, my neighbors, they got the nicest cars. They have like community luncheons and stuff like that. and I'm like, I've seen it. Okay. And I'm like, I've seen that family. Now, mind you, I used a Black man and woman, but because that's the most I've seen. But I'm pretty sure there's other races that do it, right? But it's like, okay, I wasn't raised like that, but now I'm going to do that. I'm going to start wearing polo tees. I'm going to start going to the golf club. I'm going to start like, my wife, hey, I know you don't really bang with them, but I need you to like go to their book club. Have you not heard of stuff like that before? Where hey, they're literally changing the way they are as a family so they can fit in with the neighborhood, so they can be with the richer people in their neighborhood, right? And I'm like, I feel that's kind of wrong.
Well, your circumstances are going to change when you move. Like, for example, I assume moving into another neighborhood like that, they clearly would be getting more money, right? Because generally the houses in those neighborhoods are going to be more expensive. So the assumption is that they have more money. As someone who comes from maybe a lower income and is up into higher income, you tend to say, okay, well, what do the people in that higher income do? And then copy that, right? And I mean, there's an extent where you're talking about like forcing your wife to go to a book club. That's a little bit too much.
Okay.
But honestly, as somebody who literally like with Aaron and my boy DJ 12, we went to the golf club because that's where that was his bachelor party. It was a good time. We were tearing that that up, but I was
look at the reason why you went, and I think that's what I'm trying to get to, the reasoning behind why people doing that. Like if you want to just go to the golf club, that's fine. But if you're only going to the golf club to be with those people, those type of people, I feel like, well, maybe you might get ahead in life, right? But will you be able to sleep at night? Is it going to last?
Well, the question is, did you feel good about yourself after you got rid of your dragon shirt?
Damn. You know,
I mean,
damn, you know.
Is that not like, I'm not trying to even be, talk to me, tell me, is that not a good analogy?
That's a good analogy.
That is a great one, actually. Hold on, let me fall back for a second. So when I lost the dragon shirt, I did secretly wear it around the house to hold on to it. But after a while, I had to burn it.
But the thing about it is you did that because of the social pressures around you. Because if it was up to you, you'd be wearing a dragon shirt right now.
Stop it. See now.
No, am I wrong? No, but I'm saying, like, think about it. Like, we spend a lot of time doing things because of the unclear social pressures, right? It's the reason why, when you sit down to eat, your knife and fork is in a specific place, right?
Okay.
It's the reason why you greet some people a certain way. It's literally those social pressures are there, whether you like it or not. It's like the social pressure to be like, from your family a lot of times, especially as you get older, it's like, oh man, you're not going to settle down and have some kids?
Yep. That's
You
true.
know, you know what I'm saying? Like,
That's true.
well, you're not going to get you a good job. You know, these social pressures happen without even people realizing. So imagine now you're like, okay, cool. Well, I made it, right? Like I now have money and I've moved myself into a place that is a status symbol. What do I do in that situation other than like, well, dang, everybody else around me is, you know, they're driving in freaking $1 million cars. I got to get $1 million car.
I actually had a conversation with you about that the other day, where I was like, yo, well, there's a right way to do things in my mind and a wrong way.
Mhm.
So the right way I want to do is buy a house, right? Been working on that. But I went out on a date the other day and I was like, dang, I don't think my car's sexy enough. I don't think it's impressing her enough. And I'm like, if I buy a new car, because my car is old. So I'm just keep it real with y'all. My car is old.
The car runs.
But it runs. No disrespect to her. You know what I'm saying?
That's how he got here today.
Right. So like, I hope she still loves me after this show. I hope she don't hear me actually. But like, I love her. But she old a little bit. So I'm like, yo, should I? And I was talking to Styles about this. I was like, yo, should I get a new car just so I can feel like, yeah, I'm the man, or continue on the path I'm on and have my priorities straight to get the house?
And honestly, my advice there was just mainly based on my experience, because I was like, I could have gotten the car before I got my house, and then end up in this place where now when they look at the money that I'm coming out of my bank account every month, they're like, dang, you can't afford the house. So it's like, it's really at the core of all of this, you have to, you know, figure out what you want out of life. Do you want some place where you know that you're good and you can sleep? You can sleep at night, or do you want a nice car that you can have to sleep into?
Man, sometimes I just want to ball out, yo. Like I'm tired of being responsible. I mean, like adult. I'm tired of being. I just want to splurge and put some. Do something crazy, like put some, remember the spinning wheels?
No, stop it.
Just put some spinning wheels on my ride for no reason, just cause.
Are they going to be dragon shaped?
You know what? Could I? I'm like, this is for all the people who doubted me in the past. You thought just cause I wore a dragon shirt, I couldn't be the man? So
but I think at the core of this, man, the social pressures are there, and if you're going to get to where you want to in life, you have to be very specific about your goals. And know that there's going to be times where life is going to make you question whether or not you have the right goals. Like I look at this, like what we're doing right here, like I spent a lot of money on just equipment over the years to make us better. It's like, just because I believe in what we're doing. Now I could have spent that money on something else. I could have gotten a way better car. But I got the car I wanted. And I remember when I got it, people were like, oh, you didn't get the SRT? And I'm like, no, I don't. Listen, I can spend that money, but then who am I doing it for? Like, I remember at one point, it kind of switched. Me and Aaron went to Miami, and we had gotten the first time I ever got a Dodge Challenger, and I'm like, oh man, this is a great. Like, I love the Dodge line of cars, like all the way. But then I was like, it's nice to have this car, but like, I'm also can't drive the car into the club. So it's not like you're going into the club and be like, oh, look at my keys, yo, I got this, right? Like, because that don't matter when you're in the club. And if you're trying to, you know, meet the young ladies, your car, oh yeah, you know, I got a nice car outside. That's corny, bro. Like, who says that? You need to have a conversation about now. And then when they get to the car, you be like, oh, whoa, that's a nice car.
I ain't gonna lie, the keys is the flex though. I've seen
it. Is it?
It's like, I seen one dude, he was like, because the dude was talking to a young lady, and he's like, hey man, you forgot your Maybach keys. And he's like, oh, it wasn't even his keys. He was just trying to make him look like that guy in front of the girl. And I was like, yo, that's a W man's, first of all.
Yeah, that's
hey, yo, you forgot your Maybach key. Oh, thanks, man. It was his other homeboy's keys, though. Yeah. So that is a flex.
But it is a flex until it's not.
Because you find out.
Yeah, it's like
you don't have a Maybach.
You're lying. You're lying. Like, even like when I'm driving a rental, I'm like, this is a rental, bro. It's not mine. And sometimes when I'm driving rentals, it's like, it's a trash car. And people look at you, oh, look at this guy. And I'm like, yeah, I know what I drive home, bro. That's all that matters. I'm living
Okay.
for me, bro. And that's the thing is, a lot of people don't live for themselves. They live for the impression of what you look like to other people.
Mm.
And we all have that because there's all the things we want to be better. Like I want to be able to go to the people who are like, oh, you'll never make it doing this stuff, and be like, well,
Look at me now.
what you got to say? Not like the Kanye la 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 la. Wait till I get my money. Like that was such a great encapsulating feeling of like, you know what? When I get it, when I'm up, I'm up.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's, on a boat with his ass out and shit. So
it's it's levels to it.
Sorry, I couldn't let that pass.
Yeah, that was tragic.
I was like,
I don't know what's going on with that.
Like, I'm waiting for you to make a comeback, bro. Because god dang. But yes, so you gotta at some point, the hope for everybody, and I say this as I talk to the world, is that you figure out what you want to do, who you want in your life, and you make sure you prioritize those aggressively. You figure out what you actually want to do. You make sure that you're doing what you want to do, and you're doing it because you want to do it, not because everybody else says you want to.
So you're saying, so we can sum it up, that it's really not that important to fit in, or is it more important when you're growing up, or?
I think it's something we're naturally required to do as human beings, because nobody wants to be kicked off the reservation. But I think that you should also have ruthless prioritization as who your friends. Do your friends actually support like who you are, like at a fundamental level? It's not like, oh, they like everything I do on Instagram, right? Like that's very surface level.
Okay.
And like you have to know what your motivations are. So yes, fitting in is probably part of it because, like, if I came in here every day and I was like, "Oh, you're an asshole," and just cursed you out, we probably wouldn't be friends and doing this thing because, like, there's no reason for me to do that, and two, as you want to be around people that lift you up, help you out, you could talk to about stuff and get their true opinion. So I think that comes from just like a ruthless prioritization of your friends and your spaces. And it means that sometimes if you're in a place where like you don't fit in, you either accept that, hey, well, like I've said that multiple times. I don't fit in at our current job. I don't feel like I ever have.
Mm-hmm.
But they pay me and I don't need to fit in everywhere.
Okay.
My goal is to at some point be in a space that I can create and be around a bunch of creatives that I would fit in more. But like that's a thing in my head, right? Like nobody else understands that. Like I've told people like I don't feel like I fit in, and they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, but you have to understand, like I'm a creative at heart. Like everything else that I'm doing is all secondary to being a creative.
Okay.
So obviously, if I've been in spaces where like people who now are like Grammy nominated producers, that was a space I fit in because these people are doing the things I enjoy doing. So long-winded answer to that, but I feel like fitting in is also like kind of what you want. What do you want out of life? And I think it's harder to accept that you don't know what you want out of life versus just copying what you think you should have.
Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, I think it's important. Even if it's just from a survival standpoint, I think it's important when you're young too. But I also think that you shouldn't lose yourself in doing it. But I do think that you should have a level of like, hey, you got to learn how to protect yourself, right? Yeah. And I think sometimes having a group of people who are like at least like-minded is a little bit of protection there. I also think that sometimes when you're in certain dangerous places, you're going to have to figure out what to do to survive in that dangerous place. So I wouldn't say, hey, go about life just trying to fit in. But I do think you have to be aware of how to maneuver while also trying to keep as much as your true self.
Yeah.
And I like, because the answer to the question, yes or no, is kind of like,
it's hard.
It's too complicated.
Yeah.
So.
By situation.
Yeah.
By situation.
By situation.
Is there anything else?
I don't think so. I think we can sign off. I mean, Kels, do you have
No, I was just zoned in on everything. You know, I learned a lot, but no, I don't have any comments to say.
Well, it's been another episode of Juxtaposed. We appreciate you if you made it this far. I try to say that every time because, like, you know, you had a lot of other things you could have been doing today, and you chose to rock out with us. So appreciate you. Thank you very much. We'll be back with more stuff. Definitely give
More
us a
content.
like, follow. You know, we got to do all the regular things that people
Subscribe.
ask.
Yeah.
So check out Wrapped. Check out In Crowd Reviews.
Jux Explained.
Yeah, we're pumping content out here, man. This is what we do. So thank you. Make sure you know what you're doing with your life, man. Find yourself. Peace.